The Constitution of the United States of America, as agreed upon by the Convention, September 17th, 1787. The Preamble.
From the Latin meaning walking before, the preamble to the Constitution is a preliminary or preparatory statement. It sets up the who, why, and what of the document.
We, the people of the United States.
Just 7 words, but with a lot of meaning. Let's unpack it. There are a few other places in the Constitution where the people and the states are mentioned together. In Article 1, Section 2A,
The House of Representatives shall be composed of members chosen every second year by the people of the several states.
in the Second Amendment,
A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
and in the 10th Amendment,
The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people.
In Federalist 31, Alexander Hamilton writes,
As in republics, strength is always on the side of the people, and as there are weighty reasons to induce a belief that state governments will commonly possess more influence over them, the natural conclusion is that such contests will be most apt to end the disadvantage of the Union, and that there is a greater possibility of encroachments by the members upon the federal head than by the federal head upon the members.
Also in 31, he states,
Everything beyond this must be left to the prudence and firmness of the people, who, as they will hold the scales in their own hands, it is to be hoped, will always take care to preserve the constitutional equilibrium between the general and the state governments.
Hamilton writes in Federalist 33,
If the federal government should overpass the just bounds of its authority and make a tyrannical use of its powers, the people, whose creature it is, must appeal to the standard they have formed, and take such measures to redress the injury done to the Constitution as the exigency may suggest and prudence justify.
it is up to the people, through their state governments, to keep the federal government in check and to keep the constitutional balance of power between the two. In Federalist 39, James Madison writes,
This assent and ratification is to be given by the people, not as individuals composing one entire nation, but as composing the distinct and independent states to which they respectively belong. It is to be the assent and rectification of the several states, derived from the supreme authority in each state, the authority of the people themselves.
In Federalist 46, he writes,
The federal and state governments are in fact but different agents and trustees of the people, constituted with different powers and designed for different purposes.
Also in 46,
Many considerations beyond those suggested on a former occasion seem to place it beyond doubt that the first and most natural attachment of the people will be to the governments of their respective states.
finally in 46, Madison states,
The ultimate authority, wherever the derivative may be found, resides in the people alone.
the people and the states are, for the most part, synonymous. The people are the states, and the states are the people. The Constitution was created by representatives of the state legislatures at the Constitutional Convention. The Constitution was ratified by the state legislatures, representatives of the people of the states. The federal government was created by the Constitution. This means that the federal government is not the ultimate authority. Not Congress, not the President, not the Supreme Court, not even the Constitution itself. In this Union, in these United States, perhaps only apart from the Creator himself, we, the people of the United States, are the ultimate and final authority.
We, the people of the United States. In order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity.
The Union under the Articles of Confederation was weak, and there were several things that needed to be improved or perfected for it to continue and flourish. Establishing justice. In Federalist 51, Madison writes,
Justice is the end of government. It is the end of civil society. It has ever been, and ever will be, pursued until it be obtained, or until liberty be lost in the pursuit.
In 51, he also writes,
In the extended Republic of the United States, and among the great variety of interests, parties, and sects which it embraces, a coalition of the majority of a whole society could seldom take place on any other principles than those of justice and the general good.
In Federalist 78, Hamilton states,
The complete independence of the courts of justice is peculiarly essential in a limited constitution.
In Federalist 22, Hamilton says,
A circumstance which crowns the defects of the Confederation remains yet to be mentioned, the want of a judiciary power. Laws are a dead letter without courts to expound and define their true meaning and operation.
And finally, from Hamilton in Federalist 16,
The result of these observations to an intelligent mind must be clearly this, that if it be possible at any rate to construct a federal government capable of regulating the common concerns and preserving the general tranquility, it must be founded, as to the objects committed to its care, upon the reverse of the principle contended for by the opponents of the proposed Constitution. It must carry its agency to the persons of the citizens. It must stand in need of no intermediate legislations, but must itself be empowered to employ the arm of the ordinary magistrate to execute its own resolutions. The majesty of the national authority must be manifested through the medium of the courts of justice.
the consensus was that the Union needed courts to ensure justice and preserve liberty. The Constitution would create those courts. To ensure domestic tranquility. Hamilton in Federalist 23 writes,
The principal purposes to be answered by union are these: 1. The common defense of the members. 2. The preservation of the public peace as well, against internal convulsions as external attacks. 3. The regulation of commerce with other nations and between the states. 4. The superintendence of our intercourse, political and commercial, with foreign countries.
In Federalist 15, he says,
Why has government been instituted at all? Because the passions of men will not conform to the dictates of reason and justice without restraint.
In Federalist 62, Madison writes,
A good government implies two things. First, fidelity to the object of government, which is the happiness of the people. Secondly, a knowledge of the means by which that object can be best attained.
In Federalist 3, John Jay states,
The number of wars which have happened or will happen in the world will always be found in the proportion to the number and weight of the causes, whether real or pretended, which provoke or invite them. If this remark be just, it becomes useful to inquire whether so many just causes of war are likely to be given by United States as by disunited America. For if it should turn out that united America will probably give the fewest, then it will follow that in this respect, the Union tends more to preserve the people in a state of peace with other nations.
He also states in Federalist 3,
Not a single Indian war has yet been occasioned by aggressions of the present federal government, feeble as it is. But there are several instances of Indian hostilities having been provoked by the improper conduct of individual states, who, either unable or unwilling to restrain or punish offenses, have given occasion to the slaughter of many innocent inhabitants.
Finally, in Federalist 14, Madison writes,
We have seen the necessity of the Union as our bulwark against foreign danger, as the conservator of peace among ourselves, as the guardian of our commerce and other common interests, as the only substitute for those military establishments which have subverted the liberties of the old world, and as the proper antidote for the disease of faction, which have proved fatal to other popular governments, and of which alarming symptoms have been betrayed by our own.
According to the framers of the Constitution, the creation of a new federal government was a necessity in order to avoid wars with foreign countries, with Indian tribes across the Union, and to keep peace among fellow Americans by keeping the passions of men under control, which would ensure a happier America. Provide for the common defense. In Federalist 4, Jay writes,
Who shall command the allied armies, and from which of them shall he receive his orders? Who shall settle the terms of peace? And in case of disputes, what umpire shall decide between them and compel acquiescence? Various difficulties and inconveniences would be inseparable from such a situation. Whereas one government, watching over the general and common interests, and combining and directing the powers and resources of the whole, would be free from all these embarrassments, and conduce far more to the safety of the people.
Also in 4, he states,
The people of America are aware that inducements to war may arise out of these circumstances, as well as from others not so obvious at present, and that whenever such inducements may find fit time and opportunity for operation, pretenses to color and justify them will not be wanting. Wisely, therefore, do they consider union and a good national government as necessary to put and keep them in such a situation as, instead of inviting war, will tend to repress and discourage it. This situation consists in the best possible state of defense, and necessarily depends on the government, the arms, and the resources of the country.
According to Hamilton in Federalist 34,
Let us recollect that peace or war will not always be left to our option, that however moderate or unambiguous we may be, we cannot count upon the moderation or hope to extinguish the ambition of others.
In Federalist 23, he states,
Shall the Union be constituted the guardian of the common safety? Are fleets and armies and revenues necessary for that purpose? The government of the Union must be empowered to pass all laws and to make all regulations which have relation to them.
And also in 23,
The result from all this is that the Union ought to be invested with full power to levy troops, to build and equip fleets, and to raise the revenues which will be required for the formation and support of an army and navy, in the customary and ordinary modes practiced in other governments.
the framers understood that sometimes hostilities between nations were unavoidable, and that the best way to prepare for possible hostile actions from other nations, the best way to avoid having to be involved with hostilities with other nations, and the best way to protect peace in America and to ensure safety for all Americans was to provide for a strong military defense. The only way to accomplish that was giving control over the armed forces to a new federal government. To promote the general welfare. Article 3 of the Articles of Confederation states,
The said states hereby severally enter into a firm league of friendship with each other, for their common defense, the security of their liberties, and their mutual general welfare, binding themselves to assist each other against all force offered to, or attacks made upon them, or any of them, on account of religion, sovereignty, trade, or any other pretense whatever.
In Federalist 23, Hamilton says,
Defective as the present Confederation has proved to be, this principle appears to have been fully recognized by the framers of it, though they have not made proper or adequate provision for its exercise. Congress have an unlimited discretion to make requisitions of men and money, to govern the army and navy, to direct their operations. As their requisitions are made constitutionally binding upon the states, who are in fact under the most solemn obligations to furnish the supplies required of them, the intention evidently was that the United States should command whatever resources were by them judged requisite to the common defense and general welfare. It was presumed that a sense of their true interests and a regard to the dictates of good faith would be found sufficient pledges for the punctual performance of the duty of the members to the federal head. The experiment has, however, demonstrated that this expectation was ill-founded and illusory. and the observations made under the last head will, I imagine, have sufficed to convince the impartial and discerning that there is an absolute necessity for an entire change in the first principles of the system. That if we are earnest about giving the Union energy and duration, we must abandon the vain project of legislating upon the states in their collective capacities. We must extend the laws of the federal government to the individual citizens of America. We must discard the fallacious scheme of quotas and requisitions as equally impractical and unjust.
In Federalist 45, Madison writes,
"It is too early for politicians to presume on our forgetting that the public good, the real welfare of the great body of the people, is the supreme object to be pursued, and that no form of government whatever has any other value than as it may be fitted for the attainment of this object."
Tranquility is defined as the quality or state of being calm. Welfare is defined as the health, happiness, and fortunes of a person or group. Madison believed that the real purpose of government is to ensure these things for the people. Peace, tranquility, and promoting the general welfare all go hand in hand. The Union, under the Articles of Confederation, was failing in providing what was necessary to guarantee these goals. A new federal government, as proposed by the Constitution, would provide for the necessary tools for government to fulfill its main purpose: to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. In Federalist 85, Hamilton writes,
"According to the formal division of the subject of these papers, announced in my first number, there would appear still to remain for discussion 2 points: the analogy of the proposed government to your own state constitution, and the additional security which its adoption will afford to republican government, to liberty, and to property."
Also in 85,
The additional securities to republican government, to liberty, and to property, to be derived from the adoption of the plan under consideration, consist chiefly in the restraints which the preservation of the Union will impose on local factions and insurrections, and on the ambition of powerful individuals in single states, who may acquire credit and influence enough from leaders and favorites to become the despots of the people, in the diminution of the opportunities to foreign intrigue which the dissolution of the Confederacy would invite and facilitate, in the prevention of extensive military establishments which could not fail to grow out of wars between the states in a disunited situation, in the express guarantee of a republican form of government to each, in the absolute and universal exclusion of titles of nobility, and in the precautions against the repetition of those practices on the part of the state governments which have undermined the foundations of property and credit, have planted mutual distrust in the breasts of all classes of citizens, and have occasioned an almost universal prostration of morals.
And finally, in Federalist 10, Madison writes,
"The diversity in the faculties of men, from which the rights of property originate, is not less an insuperable obstacle to a uniformity of interests. The protection of these faculties is the first object of government."
The United States of America had defeated England and gained freedom. Under the Articles of Confederation, the Union was fracturing. States were confiscating the property of their citizens. The peace and liberty they fought to attain was in jeopardy. In order to keep what they had sacrificed so dearly for, and to protect them for future generations, to prevent despots and tyrants from arising from within individual states, and to protect Americans from threats from abroad, a new form of government was necessary. When you read the writings of the founders of our Union, it is clear that the vast majority of them were men of faith, Christians. As such, they understood that the establishment of this Union was an act of divine providence, and our blessings of liberty come from the Creator Himself.
Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
The word ordain means to officially order or decree. The word Constitution, in this context, is a body of fundamental principles or established precedents according to which a state is acknowledged to be governed. With the ratification of this Constitution, the United States would be officially agreeing to be governed by a new federal government which would be created and framed by this document.